welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm Gary Crosby, and I'm here today with Natasha Anderson. She is the Managing Director and Criminal Defence Lawyer at Anderson Solicitors in Peterborough. Welcome, Natasha. Great to see you.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Really looking forward to this. Give me a little bit of context then, just to start with. Tell us what you do.
So Anderson Solicitors is a criminal defence law firm. We're based in Peterborough, and we represent people who are charged or accused of committing criminal offences. Anything from motoring offences to more serious offences such as assault, murder, rape, that type of thing.
Sounds great. Now, I realise that I'm about to ask you like one of the most massive questions about the legal system, but I'm curious because I think there's been a lot of debate for the last 10 years about access to justice. What are the main challenges for the average person in the street when it comes to access to justice?
Very good question. What a lot of people don't know is that if you've been arrested for an offence and you're taken to the police station, regardless of how much you earn, you are entitled to free and independent legal advice.
Right.
And so not a lot of people know that. Some people choose to pay because they think they're going to receive a different type of service, which absolutely isn't the case. So you could either use the duty solicitor, which is completely free, that operates on a rota basis, or you can choose your own solicitor and say, you know what, I'd like to use Anderson Solicitors.
Yeah.
The police hold a central database and they are able to contact us directly. Moving to courts, that is slightly different because that is means tested. So if you're on a low income or on benefits, for example, depending on the offence that you've been charged with, you'll almost certainly receive legal aid. And that's publicly funded by the government. So your solicitor's costs is met that way. There are some offences, however, that you would not be eligible for, and so clients would have to pay. What we're finding is that certainly in the Crown Court for the most serious offences, legal aid is available depending on your means.
Yeah.
However, you may have to make a contribution. And what I'm finding with a lot of my clients is that that contribution, even if you're on a low income, say between 25 to 30,000 pounds a year, that could be as much as £500 a month, and that's quite a lot of money for someone who's already on a low income with their usual outgoings, etc. So clients find the money because they have to, but certainly access to justice is available, but it can cost people as well.
And there's been a lot of changes, hasn't there, over the last 10 years to the legal aid system. You say clients find the money. I mean, what happens if they can't find the money? They're not eligible for legal aid and they can't find the money. How does that work in the end?
Well, certainly in the magistrates' court, a duty solicitor is available to represent clients for free in the magistrates' court. Again, that depends on the type of offence that you've been charged with. In the Crown Court, in the magistrates' court, people can represent themselves, and the court are used to people representing themselves, and they have systems in place such as a legal advisor that's there to provide the client with guidance in terms of court procedure, law, forms that need to be completed, and that kind of thing.
Sorry, no, go on.
In the Crown Court, it's slightly different because judges would prefer you to be represented. That's going back to this old school rights of audience type of thing, where, you don't have the right to speak to a judge. In those circumstances, people can represent themselves. Depending on the nature of the offence, though, I think the courts would, in the Crown Court, the court can make an order, as they do in the magistrates sometimes, for the defendant to be granted legal aid just for cross-examination of the witness. And that's maybe because the witness is vulnerable, or it's a domestic violence case, and so it's not appropriate for the complainant who to be cross-examined by the person that they're saying has caused them harm. So there are ways that the courts will try and deal with it so that people can be represented.
And I'm curious now. I mean, again, what you said just prompted a question in my mind there. The people who do decide to represent themselves, what kind of success rate do they have?
Ooh, well, often,
In your experience?
well, when we're talking about success, we're more talking about, in my legal brain, the strength of the evidence.
Yes.
And so, you could be eloquently put your case across, but if the evidence is overwhelming, then you could be the greatest advocate, but you may not have much of a chance to begin with. I certainly know some people. A friend of mine, he represented himself in the Crown Court on quite serious assault charges. I think the reason he represented himself was twofold. One, he couldn't afford a solicitor in the Crown Court. And secondly, he thought that he could do a better job. And bizarrely or not, as the case may be, he actually won his case. And he's now gone on to become a barrister himself.
Well.
Yeah, so that's a really great success story.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And as I was doing a bit of research yesterday, of course, I read a lot about crumbling courts and massive backlogs and people leaving the profession and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you, I mean, by all means, comment on those things if you want to, but I'm just wondering what the opportunities are. Are we moving towards things like remote justice and that sort of thing? What's going on?
Well, from a defence solicitor point of view, remote justice is a great thing. For us, it means that we can deal with multiple cases at a time. But for the courts, they don't really like it. The main reason being is because of internet connection. You know, once the internet connection goes, we had an issue earlier where the screen freezes. It just causes delays. In my personal view, is that I think that remote justice should be used more for, say, administrative hearings where the defendant is not required to attend. Only solicitors are required to attend to provide the court with updates, to progress the case, things like that. I think, that is the way forward. That's not to say some courts are quite happy to deal with remote hearings, other courts not so much. So it swings and roundabouts, really.
Yeah, interesting, because of course everyone's talking about artificial intelligence and everything else and how that can help, and whether professions are affected by it or not. I just see maybe some technology opportunities there, even if it doesn't quite match the older way of doing things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have a case at the moment where in Croydon Crown Court, but the client lives in Lincolnshire, and for him, it's a long journey. He's vulnerable, and to attend court for an administrative hearing that is probably going to last 20 minutes, weighed against the 4 hours to and fro for him to travel to court, it would be much simpler for the courts to allow him to appear remotely. And they actually have allowed him to appear remotely, but there have been occasions where the link just doesn't work, and so he has had to attend court. So I think where they can, the courts will allow remote hearings, but the judges definitely prefer all parties to appear in person.
Let's move on to your entrepreneurial journey then, because Anderson Solicitors is a fairly new company, right?
Yes, it is. I started Anderson Solicitors about a year and a half ago. Reason being, my family moved up to Peterborough. And prior to that, I worked in a firm in London for a number of years. I've been qualified for about 15 years now. And we work really hard. And sometimes you know, I suppose with every job, you may feel that you're not valued as much.
Hmm.
And I just thought, well, if I know I'm capable because I put in the hard work,
Yeah.
why don't I just give it a go? And yeah, it's everything's heading in the right direction.
Great. Great. One of the things that comes up a lot when I speak to business owners, both in my coaching practice and on the interviews like this, is that there are some key qualities that you've got to have in those early few years. There's a sense that you're setting out into something that's a little bit unknown. You're a great specialist in your particular area, but there's lots of other things going on. What are the key qualities that you need in those first couple of years?
Wow. Well, it's definitely been a learning curve. As you said, I specialize in my job, but I've never run a business. And that has, there's a lot to it,
Mm.
I would say be organized, have a good team of people around you,
Hmm.
such as accountants and things like that,
Yeah.
mainly.
Yeah.
I have a mentor as well that helps me in terms of promoting the business and things that I can do to increase my client base.
Brilliant.
And also, I guess funding was the main thing. I was lucky enough to have my own funds to set up the business. But what I found is that you have to be really conscious of your cash flow.
Mm.
Coming in, coming out. Some months are great and there's, little money in the kitty. And then other months is like, whoa, okay,
Mm.
let's rejuggle some things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So definitely the first year, and even now is, and also it's about the way that we're paid. We're paid monthly, and sometimes there's a delay in payment and things like that. So it's really trying to keep on top of the finances, know where you are, what you have, what you don't have, and be aware of cash flow.
Mm. And I mean, we talk a lot about mental health and things like that, but when it comes to resilience, I think this is one of the things that I've noticed that sometimes when you look at the business survival stats, people leap out of their previous world or their corporate career and they go into business, and then after a couple of years they go back into paid work because
Mm.
it's a tough gig, right? I'm just wondering about fortitude, resilience. How does that fit in?
Well, it's very different when you have your own business, because it's not a 9 to 5 job.
Mm.
Um, your brain hardly ticks off. Something pops into your head. You need to write that down, or you don't need. You need to think about that because you're thinking about the survival of the business.
Mm.
What I try, and yeah, so you're working long hours. You don't necessarily switch off at the end of the day. The way I try to manage it is, if I have a quiet day, then to utilize that time in terms of well-being. So I don't know. I mean, I'm lucky enough, I'm self-employed. So if I have a quiet day, maybe I'll work from home
Mm-hmm.
because I know the next day is going to be busy. I also generally have a rule that I try not to sort of speak with clients after office hours,
Yeah.
unless it's urgent. If they're at the police station or the family members at the police station, then we're available 24/7. But you've also got to try and what's the word? Train your clients so that they know that you're not necessarily available 24/7.
Yes.
Bank holiday Monday, I had I had text messages, missed calls, and it made me think, is this a bank holiday, or have I missed something?
Not for
Um,
everybody else. So.
yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So it's just sort of just having a clear work ethic, so that you don't burn out.
Mm.
You have
Mm.
to have that time for yourself, for your family, and have a clear divide. So, otherwise, because you like what you do, I don't think anyone goes into business. Well, most people, I would imagine, go into business because they like what they do and they think
Mm.
that offer and provide a good service. So when you like your job, it doesn't feel like work when you're doing it, 7, 8 o'clock or on a Saturday or a Sunday. But I try not to get into that trap and make sure that, I do have, weekends, for example, set days where I can wind down and spend time with the family and friends.
That's brilliant advice, Natasha, because I've met lots of business owners who complain that they don't have very much time, but that's because they say yes to everything.
Absolutely.
And they worry that their clients will leave them if they don't answer that text at 8 o'clock, when actually in reality, that's not the case, right?
No, absolutely. I think and I've spoken to other colleagues who are in the same position, and it's like, well, if you have a quiet day, take that time to do for yourself. And I think with clients, even if they're not able to get hold of you straight away then and there, I pride myself in having good relationships with my clients. I do return calls. It never go a week without me not returning a call. I try and return a call within 2 days at the most, and just explaining to them, it was bank holiday, don't you? Or I don't work weekends.
Check the calendar.
Yeah, you just, if you have a conversation, and 9 times out of 10 they're fine.
Yeah, good. So I'm thinking now about, it's quite a young company, but you must be thinking, I guess, about the future. What does the future hold for Anderson Solicitors?
Well, I'd like to be in a position whereby the business is healthy month to month. I have a consultant solicitor joining in September.
Excellent.
So we're slowly expanding. I'm definitely much a one-man band at the moment, so I definitely like to get a trainee solicitor on board. I'm not sort of looking to overtake the area and be, a massive firm of solicitors as such, but because I want to be able to still provide a quality service for the client. So, a few more people to join the team would be great.
Yeah, and just to make sure the viewers are aware, I'm not your coach, but you did mention mentoring before. Just tell me a little bit about what you get from your mentor.
So my mentor, he talks to me about well-being, make sure that what am I doing to make sure that I'm having a bit of downtime. We talk a lot about advertising and trying to get the company, the firm out there so that people know who I am, and ways to improve that generally. He also gives advice about cash flow and, sort of make sure that I'm doing my end of monthly reports and understanding the figures and the increase, decreases and stuff like that, and just understanding how to interpret how the business is doing and what I can do to improve my client base.
Sounds like a good mentor.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about, the future is the kind of organic growth, adding people to the business as time goes on. As you look forward, can you see any major sort of challenges and obstacles to the growth of the company?
I think with any business, I guess it's just making sure that that you continue to be financially viable. And despite what people might think, I hold a legal aid contract, so I can represent clients who can't afford a solicitor, but the pay's not great, for me, it's just trying to attract more private clients if I can, and maybe even consider it branching out to another area of law.
And when it comes to, your mentor has told you about, or you're working with your mentor on the idea of and visibility and things like that, what are the main things that you think will lead to that sort of sense that everybody in Peterborough knows that Anderson Solicitors exists?
Well, the first thing that I'm working on is my website. We do have a website at the moment, but it's not exactly how I'd like it to be.
Yeah.
So I'm working on a better professional quality website. I've also joined, it's called the Big Business. And it's a way of using social media to help attract clients, or
Yes.
bringing people to your website so that they know that you're there. I've joined the Chamber of Commerce. I've joined a local sort of networking, I'd say sort of networking group in the area. So I think the main thing though for my type of business is basically having an internet presence. I think because if someone gets caught driving with a mobile phone, for example, the first thing you'll do is go, Google,
Yes.
to see if there's a local firm of solicitors to help you. So it's basically more marketing. That's what I'm trying to focus on. It's all work in progress at the moment.
Which is interesting because that takes us back to the point in the conversation where you were saying, you're an expert in your chosen field in the technicalities of law. But as a business owner, you've got to add in marketing and sales and finance and all the things you've mentioned. And I think it's a key message for startups. You may be brilliant at what you do, web designing or construction or whatever, but there are so many other facets to being a business owner.
So many other things, and it's the smallest thing, from making sure that your phone works and that you have an answering machine, to stationery, things that I just never really had to think about. And I'd say for any small business, in terms of getting people to know that you're there, is marketing. You have to have a good marketing strategy, and that, I think personally, I think that starts from the website, because that's the first thing that people see, and that creates an impression to clients about what your business can do for them. And so marketing is definitely a big thing. I wouldn't say I'm a marketing expert just yet, but certainly I've learned and read so many books about marketing. I think I'm becoming a little bit of an expert now.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? And then you become an expert, and then the following day the algorithms change in whatever marketing place you're, Google SEO or LinkedIn or something like that, and suddenly you find that what worked last week doesn't work anymore.
You have to constantly review it, definitely. Yeah.
Good. Great. Lots of different lessons there. I could pick out half a dozen things that I would share with, startup business people and entrepreneurs, because they are important lessons to learn at the beginning. Just to finish off, Natasha, is there anything else that about what you're doing, the work that you're doing, that you want to share with the viewers before we finish up?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, Anderson Solicitors provides a professional service to all its clients. We pride ourselves in being available and giving honest legal advice. We are offering free consultations if you have a legal query, or you're not really sure what's going to happen at court. So yeah, we're and just trying to get ourselves known in the area, really.
Brilliant. Love it. I could talk for hours, Natasha, but time is against us, I'm afraid. So we must stop there. Thank you very much indeed for joining me on the Business Spotlight this morning.
Thank you for having me, Gary. It's been a pleasure.